FIFA is one of the most corrupt organizations in the world. You can rank them alongside the IOC and the Trump White House, and whichever order you want, I would probably agree that you have it in the right order. FIFA is not offering the World Cup as an act of altruism.
Looking for reliable and convenient personal safety products? Less Lethal has you covered. As Canada's only authorized Byrna distributor, we provide a range of products for recreation, protection, and security. Explore our Byrna launcher lineup, including the LE, SD, TCR, and Mission 4, designed for different levels of performance and protection needs. We also offer the Banshee personal safety alarm, designed to protect children, women, and vulnerable individuals. Because your safety is our top priority. Shop now at lesslethal.ca.
Today on True Patriot Love, we have back our friend Moshe Lander, a senior lecturer from Concordia University for economics. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
Good, good. So FIFA, we're going to talk a little about the Cup, and 2 days away, and everyone's getting excited. Soccer fans are getting excited. I don't know. Are you a soccer fan?
I am. I'm a huge sports fan in general, but I love watching national soccer. Not as much at the club level, but I'm getting a little more into it with each passing year. But yes, I will be watching actively.
Oh, good, good. Okay, so Bosnia, Canada, kicking it off on Friday, 3:00. You know, I'm here in Toronto. You're in Montreal, I think.
Yes.
And I'm sure big soccer fans in Montreal. Of course, Toronto. Yeah, so. I wouldn't say you're hearing a lot of buzz. You know, I came in today and I asked everyone, I said, who's watching the game on Friday? It was a little less than 50-50, in my small survey I did coming in. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of interest. The TV stations are playing it. Quite frankly, they're promoting the heck out of it. I think they're doing a good job trying to get the message out. But, before we did a show, and the show was about the cost of the Cup and what it was going to cost Canada. And the parliamentary budget officer came out and said, listen, this thing's ballooned up. It's going to cost well over $1 billion. And I was like, wow, $1 billion. Because I remember John Tory, when he was the mayor, I remember the conversation about $45 million at council. That's kind of what I recollect. Then I did a budget show and we talked about $100 million. And I thought, okay, I was kind of probably at about 200 million. And then all of a sudden I start hearing these numbers ballooning up, transfers. Our mayor, Olivia Chow, was running around saying she was short 96 million. She started buying tickets. I don't know if you remember that one. It was kind of a funny issue. The city of Toronto went out and said, listen, we're short about 96 million. We're having trouble paying for Fan Fest. We're having all these challenges. We're going to get into the scalper game. So they bought 3,500 tickets. They tried to, they tell us they've resold most of them. But at the same time, the province came out and enacted a non-scalper rule, which then took that into flux. So that was a little bit of a mess. But, we're now I was looking this morning before the show, we're now at about $500 million from the feds towards this event. And then the other $500 million is coming from all levels of government. So that's from Vancouver to cover 13 games, which doesn't seem like much compared to the 78 for two stadiums, one that holds now 54,000 and the other one that holds 45,000. So I'm trying to do the math, which I'm going to ask you to help me with. So I'm struggling with that. And then I'm trying to figure out, okay, does this make sense? And I'm like, okay, I guess it has some long-term benefits because we spent about 130 million plus on capital expenditures. I don't know where that money sits. So I don't know if it's in the billion, not in the billion. It's hard to figure out because, there's all these kind of flying numbers that actually do this. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, who makes the money here? So who actually, I know we've spent $1 billion. I kind of do some quick math and I think, okay, I got, let's say average 45,000 seats sold. I'm hearing rumors that hotel vacancies are still seasonal. So basically didn't increase the number of people in hotel rooms. And then I'm hearing all these quotes about how there's still tickets left, but tickets are at an outrageous price. So Mose, help me understand how revenues flow here, who gets what, and how at the end of the day, does this make any sense for Canada and for our two cities?
Yeah, it is a bit of a head scratcher when you start to try and parse the numbers. I'll make it as simple as I can. The vast majority of the money goes to FIFA, and everybody else is fighting for crumbs. So we can look at whether it's $500 million here or 100 million there. It really is. FIFA is one of the most corrupt organizations in the world. You can rank them alongside the IOC and the Trump White House, and whichever order you want, I would probably agree that you have it in the right order. FIFA is not offering the World Cup as an act of altruism. And I think that was a mistake by John Tory from the beginning in Toronto. At least Olivia Chow had the common sense to say, I think it was about 6 months ago, we're stuck with this, which was clearly, I didn't ask for this. I wasn't mayor at the time, but I am mayor now, and I can hand it back. So we're just going to have to keep on keeping on, and whatever happens, I will at least say I never wanted this in the first place. The Vancouver mayor right now, Mayor Sims, he continues to double, triple, quadruple down, promising these outrageous benefits to the Vancouver economy that bear no resemblance to reality. And so I think that if he thinks that he's going to capture some of these billions of dollars, he's sorely mistaken. So when FIFA comes to these host countries, what they're really looking to do is prey on your fear. So how many times have we seen civic leaders throw money at stadiums, arenas, trying to bring a sports team to town for fear of being the one that would allow the sports team to go? Quebec Nordiques left Quebec City, became the Colorado Avalanche, and the next year they win the Stanley Cup. Man, wouldn't you hate to be the mayor of Quebec City that let that team go, and they ended up winning multiple Stanley Cups in the 1990s, where it could have been you being the mayor hosting the parade? So what happens then is that FIFA has become extremely good at saying to North America, are you interested? Because if you're not, I know other people that would be. And it almost sounds like this slick used car sales that you would hear from, the 1970s, 1980s, that got somebody coming to look at this car at 5 o'clock, make an offer quick. And that's the way that they extract money. When they get you to sign on the dotted line, I know that, of course, there's lawyers that read over it and that the city does their due diligence, but I think they discount some of the small print. And so when they start realizing, wait a second, we're responsible for this too? You mean we have to pay the full security bill? Wait, we have to rip up all of the grass at BMO Field and put in brand new grass that meets the level that FIFA expects of us? Hey, it's Toronto. Don't you know we have winter here? It's snowy here. Wait, the capacity of the stadium isn't good enough. We have to put up temporary seating to make sure that we meet the minimum amount necessary. These are the types of things that once you get into business with them, unless you have the guts to hand it back and say, changed my mind, I reconsidered, you are, like Olivia Chow said, stuck with it. And then what happens is that the costs go out of control. The way that I would explain it to a non-sports economist, the way that I would explain it to just, I'll say, the average person in the street, which sounds kind of condescending, is that if you've ever been through any home renovation, there's three things that anybody wants out of their renovation. They want it to be on budget, they want it to be on time, and just for the purposes of symmetry, I'm going to call it on quality. Like, you want good work done. Any home renovation can have two of those three, but it's not going to have all three unless it's a pure accident. And if it happens, you keep that contractor for the rest of your life because you found the golden goose. But as the homeowner, you can decide which one do you want to sacrifice. If you want on budget and on time, you give up on quality. If you want on time and on quality, you give up on budget. And if you want on quality and on budget, then you give up on time. You get to choose. But when it comes to FIFA and the World Cup, you don't get to choose. You can't go to FIFA right before the event begins tomorrow officially and say, not ready yet. Can I have another month? No, this goes ahead. You said the first game in Canada is on Friday. It goes ahead on Friday. And you can't compromise quality either, because FIFA says this is our crown event. There's nothing that you're going to do that will embarrass us and make our event look less valuable to future hosts than what we expect out of you. So what has to go out the window? the on budget bit. So when John Tory said, you said 45 million, I actually remember 30 million, which might have been an even earlier estimate. So it seems that he missed a zero in his calculations, if not more, as we're going to find out. FIFA's probably laughing, saying, you can tell your taxpayers whatever number you want. We could not care less. Your numbers are meaningless. If we decide you're going to spend $1 billion, you're going to spend $1 billion because it has to be on time and on quality.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Olivia Chow was actually in the news recently, and she was going on about how the fact that she was trying to scalp these tickets because she didn't want to use our property tax to pay for FIFA. And in the end, she's going to use part of our property tax to pay for FIFA. In a year when elections are happening, this is an interesting part. Elections are happening, and quite frankly, on the municipal side, and we're going to see the horrific outcome because they're actually happening in the fall as this all comes to bear, especially in Ontario, where the candidates running against her, I'm sure they're going to pull this out and say, "What the heck happened here? You were here when it was happening." So FIFA, if I'm in FIFA's spot right now, I'm pretty happy. As you mentioned,
you should be thrilled. You've got the North American market that's going to be watching. The games are going to be scheduled in a way that, in theory, done right, Europe should be able to watch as well. So if you have a match that goes off at, say, 3 p.m. Eastern time zone, that's 8 o'clock in the UK, 9 o'clock in France and Germany, 10 o'clock at worst over towards, say, like Greece and Eastern Europe. And given that the matches are fixed, it's not like, especially at the group stage, there's not the equivalent of overtime or extra innings. Once 90 minutes is up, 90 minutes is up, and they know that that fits roughly into a 2-hour broadcast. So everybody in Europe can be in bed by midnight, secure in knowing exactly what happened for the day. And you can also get the Asian market as well. So a lot of us learned during COVID that there's a 12-hour time difference between the Eastern time zone and China. So if you have a game that's going off at 8 o'clock here in the evening, it's 8 o'clock in the morning there and vice versa. So you can almost set up your schedule then so that most of the world will be able to watch the teams that they want to watch for nationality purposes. If you had this going off in Asia, there would be an instantaneous problem trying to get everybody to be able to watch live. We saw that during the Olympics when they were in Beijing, when they were in Tokyo, when they were in South Korea. I think it was Pyeongchang. And so when we saw the games there, it was a nightmare for Canada to be able to watch live. And if we were able to watch live, then it was impossible for Europe to watch live. This is the ideal location. And so what you do then is you get to max out on your broadcast revenues. You get to max out on your corporate sponsors because you're now going to be broadcasting to the entire world. So imagine if you're Coca-Cola or McDonald's or Apple. I don't think they're actually official sponsors of this event, but if they were, they would be able to broadcast to billions of people. So when they go to FIFA and say, make us the exclusive soft drink of the World Cup, FIFA is going to extract maximum amounts out of them, saying, this isn't just where half the world is watching, the whole world is going to watch, and in real time. And remember that when it comes to the broadcasting game, real-time events are the ones where you can guarantee advertising dollars. Anything that's pre-recorded, tape delayed, you can always fast forward through them, or you can watch it at your convenience then on demand, where you're not necessarily going to see those ads. So this is the type of thing then that it's one of the few areas left where you can maximize that broadcasting revenue too.
Yeah, no, I know. And they've increased the number of teams. So that's a really brilliant move. So I think from Qatar, their broadcasting rights are projected to, or have gone up 30% since Qatar. And they've added more teams. And to your point, Moshe, they've got Fox Sports and they got Telemundo on board, which is actually popping in 1.25 billion into this. So the advertising market is off the hook. So getting this to market, getting it, to your point, on time. Who cares about budget? Because you're not paying anyways. It's the best scenario you could have. You're looking to reap. And I went on and I said, okay, what are the total broadcasting rights going to pour into this for them? And it was interesting. It's about $4 billion. And, it's interesting how you hit on it right away. China and India were latecomers to the market. So they didn't jump right in because the time zone changed. So they've actually kind of renegotiated down their broadcasting rights contribution. But we've stepped to the table. I was a little shocked that we didn't step. Canada is given a moderate amount for broadcasting rights. It's not a huge number. The U.S. is just all over us because they have 78 events going on. So that makes about $4 billion. Then, of course, to your point, marketing and commercial rights, it's $1.78 billion. I looked at, what they had estimated to make FIFA from this. Ticket sales about $2.3 billion. Hospitality and VIP packages about $700 million. Licensing, merchandising, $111 million. Other revenues, $72 billion, for roughly about $8.9 billion. Now, shocking when I heard it, because I had no idea of the numbers, how big they were. And then I went and took a look at some of their other projections. They had increased their projections for the 23. They did a 4-year projection period, 23 to 26. They'd increased from 11 billion to 13 billion based on some of the broadcasting advantages and advertising that you mentioned. So for them, this is a really, really sweet deal. Like,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so, when we're looking at $1 billion here or there and we're losing our collective minds, they're laughing and they're saying that's chump change, right? Like it's a rounding error to them. And it really shows that within the business of professional sports, we're normally very much against the idea of monopoly, but it's essential in sport for it to work. So for a North American audience, the NHL back in the 70s faced a competitor in the WHA. And it almost bankrupted both leagues. Now, it ultimately did bankrupt the WHA, and that's how we ended up with the Jets, the Nordiques, the Oilers, and one other team that doesn't come to my mind right now. But they eventually joined. Oh, the Hartford Whalers. They joined in part because once you have competition among leagues, they start bidding for talent. And while it's a little bit before my time, I know enough of my sports history to know that when the WHA poached away Bobby Hull for $1 million, the game was on, and all of a sudden the NHL becomes a little more aggressive in trying to maintain its talent and keep it from jumping ship, and the WHA then has to start increasing the price it pays to try and draw the NHL. Well, at the end of the day, you're both competing for the same market, and so one got driven under by the rapidly rising costs. The ABA and the NBA had the same experience, and so the Nuggets, the Nets, the Pacers, and the Spurs were the holdovers that managed to survive to the end and join the NBA. So it's the same thing then when we talk about World Cup events. You can't have a second World Cup. There's not going to be a second organization run by me where I'm going to try and have a national soccer competition to compete with the World Cup. It won't happen because in order for me to draw Argentina, Brazil, Germany, come play in my event, I would have to offer them appearance fees, or I would have to offer them the lap of luxury existence to make them want to skip out on the World Cup. But if I'm not getting all of the best teams over, then even when I crown a champion, it's not going to be accepted as the undisputed champion of soccer because there's a whole bunch of countries playing over in the FIFA World Cup. And FIFA is going to try and do everything they can to keep Messi and some of the top stars from jumping over to my competing. So notice what would happen here is that $14 billion revenue projection would probably be compromised, but also their profits would be compromised as well. So there's nothing wrong with FIFA being a monopoly. I think that what we're seeing is that beyond just the revenue projections, it's how did they get those numbers? There seems to be some sort of ick factor, and we certainly cringed when we saw Gianni Infantino give Donald Trump the FIFA Peace Prize Award. And we went, oh, okay, we already knew you guys were corrupt, and we knew you guys were corrupt. And now that you guys seem to be chumming up, this really doesn't sound good. And I think that some of the pushback is that we're seeing that fans are saying, I don't know that I want to be a part of this anymore. I don't know that I want to hand my money over so freely to FIFA. And so we've started to see a little bit of pushback where even the host cities now are saying, even the minimal revenue projections we thought we were going to have are now being compromised because fans are pushing back saying, I don't like the optics here.
Yeah, no, I definitely. And, and just back of the napkin math, I was trying to get ready for the show, and I'm former CPA. I'm trying to figure out, okay, if there's, let's say 15,000 people from abroad from each of the games, there's only 45, 54 in BC, 45 in Toronto. a third of the people are coming from another place to come to the game. I don't know how many people were just come to go to a bar to watch a game. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but maybe there are some people visiting family that come to watch it with their families and stay. But you're basically talking 15,000 times 13 games. It's a couple 100,000 people. They all spend $2,500. So, the economic spin-off benefit is somewhere, you're better at this than I am, direct, indirect, but it's roughly about a half a million to, maybe you could probably push up a case to three-quarters of a $750 million, three-quarters of a billion. I don't know if you could actively get any higher than that, but maybe you could. But we're already in it for over $1 billion now. So we know we're going to take a loss. We're going to have some leftover, I guess, facilities. I don't know what's left over because in Toronto, we're taking it all down after because it's temporary. So I guess, and a lot of the costs, quite frankly, are security and safety. I was shocked when you looked at the breakdown of the costs and I went through it, more than a third of it was actually kind of a third of it is heritage, a third of it is safety, and then a third is kind of just other operating costs. So there's a huge safety component whether it's immigration, whether it's all the police and safety and drones and everything else to get everything secured, to secure those 45,000 people in those stadiums and to move them around. It's a huge exercise. So is the spin-off effect really, this is kind of what came to my mind from an economic perspective. Is the spin-off effect just government putting money into the community? Is it really just, okay, I decided to do this, so I took $1 billion and I spun it off into the community. I paid salaries, I paid police, I paid capital. So there are, you could have almost done that on any project you wanted to, really. It's just government taking $1 billion and putting it into the community, really.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. I'm going to push back a little bit on some of your calculations. I'm not going to redo the math. You did a perfectly good job with the numbers. But what I'm going to say is that I think that you overstated it. And that's a common mistake that political leaders make. So what if in a normal summer, 200,000 visitors come to Vancouver and Toronto? So you said that around 200,000 will be coming for the World Cup. So what happens if these 200,000 that would normally come say, well, I'm not coming for the World Cup, I'm going to go somewhere else, and these 200,000 soccer fans come in their place, then the actual net effect is zero. Or if not zero, it's really just now down to parsing who spends more, a normal tourist or a soccer tourist. And so you would have massively overcalculated then when you said $750 million, $1 billion at the high end. So when I keep pushing back saying, you guys are massively overstating what the economic benefits are because you're failing to take account of what's the economic consequences of this decision. The other thing that I highlight too, then, to a Toronto audience, I'm not from Toronto, but I grew up in London. I know a little bit about Toronto, enough to be dangerous. The Gardiner Expressway is jammed solid all day long at the best of times. What do you think it's going to look like on a game day? It can't be more jammed. And I don't want people pushing back saying, oh, yeah, well, it now just backs up to the 427 instead of backing up to here. Fine. But the basic point is, how many people in downtown Toronto are going to say, I'm going to work at home this week? I'm not even coming downtown. So if you're running, say, a Jugo Juice downtown in the Path, where you would have maybe your normal clientele that are here Monday to Friday, you're losing those clients because they're not coming in. So it's the soccer fans that are replacing that. So even the local business that says, we're actually not seeing any benefit here either, because it's not just at the event itself, and it's not just at the hotels, it's a lot of the food and beverage industry is not benefiting. I'll give you another way in which you can think about this overstatement. I was here in Montreal. I am a Buffalo Sabres fan, so it was a brutal couple of weeks when they were playing each other in the playoffs. I would not go anywhere near a Montreal bar on game night, because I'm going to get beer poured on my head as a Sabres fan, and I don't want to have to sit there on my hands. I want to be able to enjoy it, so I watched it from home. When I would go to the bar is on non-game nights, but I'll tell you what, for every media outlet that was showing how jam-packed the bars were on game night, they want that 10-second clip of the place erupting when Montreal scores, and they want to talk to the bar owner who says this is the greatest thing to happen to us in the last 20 years. And great. I'm telling you, on the nights that I went, that bar was empty. There was one person working the entire place, and the only table they had to serve was the friend of mine and I that were sitting there alone. When you look at the big picture, then, the overall effect on the bar is pretty close to zero. All that happened was the people that would normally go in every day shifted to just game nights, and they would stay away on non-game nights. So again, if all you're seeing in the media is that explosion of happiness when Montreal scores, great. That's one particular night or 10 nights or whatever it was. But the other part of it is that at some point, the visa bill arrives. And when the visa bill arrives, you go, holy, what did I spend at the bar? You look at your spouse and you say, all right, that was your birthday dinner. We're not going out when your birthday comes around. Hey, kids, you remember those jerseys I bought you? That's your Christmas gift. Don't ask for anything in December. And I need to scale back on the number of times that I go to Tim Hortons to try and figure out how to make ends meet. So even within the broader economy, the overall impact could very well be close to zero. I just time shifted it or industry shifted it to one particular sector. So we're going to see the exact same thing unfold in Toronto, that once we're done calculating all of the inflows, which you did very nicely, I'm going to say, and now look at all the outflows, it's a much, much smaller benefit. So yes, the $1 billion then that's being pumped into the local economy to pay for security costs or infrastructure development, does it leave any long-lasting benefit? No, like you said, BMO Field will go back to BMO Field, and all of that stuff will not leave anything behind. The people that are paid for overtime or for extra security, that will have maybe a temporary impact on the economy. Here's a small extra bit of income. And then once the circus leaves town, then it's now you go back to your regular income. And so at best, you either blow it all in June and July, or if you have enough foresight, you might try and drag that out and spread it out over the next 12 months, 18 months. But that one extra paycheck, two extra paychecks spread out over a long period of time itself becomes a rounding error. So again, we're looking at a massive overstatement of what the benefit is. $1 billion sounds a lot to you and me, and it's more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. But the Canadian economy is $2.5 trillion. So $1 billion is less than 1/2 of 1/10 of a percentage point. That's 5 cents on $100. If you're sitting on my couch having a conversation with me and you have $100 jingling around in your pocket, and when you get up, a nickel falls into my couch, are you going to rip apart my couch to find the nickel, or are you just going to do a quick swipe to see if you can find it? If not, say, whatever, sorry about that, Lander, and leave. We're losing our collective minds over $1 billion, whether it's a lot, a little, who cares? It doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. So here too, we were massively overpromised something that's not going to deliver even remotely what they said.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So, and I don't know if they ever did the math. When you look at the number of seats, so as I mentioned, and you do the math and you think to yourself, okay. And the way I kind of broke it down roughly is basically a third of the people are going to buy tickets from Toronto, a third of the people are going to buy tickets from somewhere else in Canada, and a third are going to come from abroad. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Help me out a little with tickets. So now I'm struggling a little with the ticket prices, because now I'm hearing, so now to your point, and you brought it up earlier, people are not super happy. I have a few people, again, I mentioned to you, came in, asked around, I had half the people say they're not interested, less than half say they're interested. But I had a few people say, I got tickets. So a few people said, I paid the $1,200. I got the tickets. I got 2 tickets. And I'm like, oh, wow, good for you. You must really love soccer. And I would never pay $1,200 for it. But if it works for you and you love it, great, right? Go watch it. But there are tickets still available. But ticket prices are ranging. So you have places or companies like StubHub who have a lower value on their ticket, and you have FIFA who has a higher value on their ticket. How does that, for our viewers and for our listeners, tell us how that works and the rationale, the pricing and the model for pricing that's used to do this?
Let's start with some basic ideas then. So as a soccer fan, I would like to see the stadium full. As a Buffalo Sabres fan, if I'm going to go to a Sabres game, I want to see the arena full. I want to see a whole bunch of Sabres fans like me having a good time. And if I see empty seats, I feel bad. Like, why didn't the Sabres just give the seats away? Or why didn't they just sell them at a discount? Or why didn't they have like walk-up game day prices where you can fill the place out? Now, that's me as a fan. As a sports economist, I actually recognize that maybe you don't want the stadium full. And the way that you maximize your revenues or your profits is by keeping it partially empty. So I'll give you a bad example. Let's say that I'm offering an exclusive one-time only dinner with me. I'm going to regale you with economic stories for the night. I have 3 seats available at this table for 4 because obviously I'm going to occupy one of them. Now, here's my pricing scheme. I can sell 2 seats for $80, or I can sell 3 seats for 50. So the law of demand, which whether you've studied economics or not, you probably know that when the price of something goes up, it's not as desirable. When the price goes down, it's more desirable. So it's exactly what I said. 2 seats for $80 or 3 for 50. I actually only want to sell 2 seats. 2 seats would get me $160. 3 seats would only get me $150. So I'm perfectly fine having 2 people sit with me in an empty seat. Now, if you walk by me in the restaurant and you say, man, Lander must not be popular. He can't even fill out a table for 4, poor guy. I'm pointing at you saying, actually, this is the way that I wanted it. So when we're looking at seats and saying, why isn't the stadium sold out? Maybe it's because FIFA has the experience of 2 for 80 is better than 3 for 50. And we're okay with the stadium being half empty. And we've maximized our profits that way. In terms of why don't you have a walk-up? Because if somebody bought their tickets in advance for $1,200, but realizes that you could have bought game day for $50, they're going to be extremely angry that they paid $1,200. Now, granted, they're guaranteed a seat and they got to choose and they don't have to settle for whatever's left over. But there's going to be this huge pushback that, wait a second, why are you doing that? You will never have that $1,200 customer again. So at that point, then FIFA is going to say, we're not giving these tickets away. We're not cutting the price. We're not going to slash it down. So where FIFA has held steady, look, that's the price that's on the ticket. Take it or leave it. We're not doing anything differently. Now, how did they determine the price of the ticket? Again, I'm showing my age a little bit, but to an older audience that remembers when there were actual physical tickets, you would put the price on the ticket. And what would happen then is as we got closer to game day, if the demand for those tickets exceeds supply, the price goes up. And so you're now holding a lottery ticket, not just a ticket. If you know that people are willing to pay $100 for something that you paid $50 for, there's 2 things you can do. 1, go enjoy the game because that's why you maybe bought it in the first place. Or 2, sell your lottery ticket for $100 to somebody who now values it more, pocket the extra money and go watch the game from the bar. What FIFA has realized is that the days of physical tickets with a price on it are long gone. And so for anybody who's heard the idea of dynamic pricing, what they've said is, why don't we just watch and see what's going on and try and figure out what people are willing to pay? We've got a lot of data points. We've got a lot of information here that's very valuable to us. I was on the list in the early days for like, sign up for this to be told when you can like pre-buy or early information. And then when I saw the ticket prices, I went, forget it. But for everybody who signed up, it gave them a rough picture of what the market was. They have some market demographics then to know who you are, and they can probably guess your disposable income, your willingness to pay, how much of a soccer fan you are. And so what they did was they said, all right, what is the maximum you might be willing to pay for that ticket? So rather than assuming that the price is $50 and let's see what happens, they could try and figure that out. Now, the way that I would do it if I'm talking to you right now is I'd say, if you wanted to go see Canada play Bosnia on Friday, would you be willing to pay $100? And you might say yes. Would you be willing to pay $110? Sure. 120, 130, 140. At some point, you're going to say, that's it. That's my limit. I won't go above that. Well, At that point, then I could charge you that maximum amount. And while you would be very grumbly saying, man, that's pretty steep, you did say you were willing to pay it. And so what FIFA is doing then is with their modeling is they're trying to figure out what is the maximum amount people would be willing to pay. And let's see if we can extract that from them. They'll grumble, but we now pocket the money. And so when you're saying that they're going to make $14 billion in a 4-year cycle, part of the way in which they're doing this is not just by knowing the North American customers, but like you said, it's a 4-year cycle. There was all the World Cup qualifying. There were all of the various sub-qualifications. There were the various last minute where that's how we ended up with Bosnia instead of Italy. And so they can see then, based over this 4-year cycle, what is it that people are willing to do? What's going on in MLS? What do we see happening in the top-notch European leagues? We can get a rough feel for what people would be willing to pay to see their national soccer club play. And so they've figured out that we're okay with an empty stadium and we're okay maxing out on what people are willing to pay. Again, it kind of smacks of something icky, but it's perfectly within economics logic that this is how you maximize your revenue, even though optically it doesn't look good to the fan and it doesn't necessarily optically look good on TV when we see that the stadium might only be half full and you're saying, what's going on there? Why does Vancouver suck so much? It's not. It's that they didn't want to sell out.
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you ever watch world cricket matches?
Not regularly, but I have seen, yeah.
But when you see them, the stands are empty. They are definitely half empty. So they use this model totally to figure out how to price their tickets and how people come. What happens with the other ticket retailers? Pardon me.
So they're basically matchmaking. So
Okay.
their role here is essentially the scalper that would have existed back in the day. So scalping was essentially illegal. There was always undercover cops walking around near the dumpster checking to see what was going on. If they saw an egregious act, they would go and either fine you, arrest you, or whatever. The problem with ticket scalping as a concept, though, was that while it was fixing a market imperfection, the team didn't price the tickets right. You can't be sure that what you're buying is an actual ticket. I could easily fraudulently make a Buffalo Sabres ticket and sell it to you for barely more than face value or even face value, but I get to pocket it. And when you show up at the gate, they're going to say, that's not a ticket. Places like StubHub, SeatGeek stepped into the marketplace and said, look, what we will do is we will verify the ticket. We will provide confirmation that what you were buying and selling is an authentic ticket. In exchange for our confirmation and our credibility, which both sides are trading on, we're going to take a cut. So even though you're going to sell the ticket for $100, you're only going to get to keep 95 of it because we're going to take $5. And even though you are paying for this ticket, you're going to have to pay $105 because you're paying $100 for the ticket and you're going to give us a $5 cut. So they're basically playing from both sides. So what they're doing then is trading in their inventory. How many people have wanted to list their tickets and what is the price that they want from it? And then StubHub or SeatGeek or whoever it is that's operating says, okay, we have a commission. And so you can see then that there's a difference in the way that the pricing is going to be structured because in FIFA's case, they are the seller of the ticket. They are the Buffalo Sabres of this event. So they don't have to worry about taking a commission from both sides. They just say, look, I'm selling direct to end user. So all of that money flows to me, where in the case of the secondary market, StubHub is making their money on the commission, and all you're doing is transferring money from somebody who already paid FIFA to somebody who wants to get that ticket, but rather than get it from FIFA, they're getting it from somebody who's already made that transaction.
Right. Okay. So what happens at the end of the day? So this is an interesting thing. So at the end of the day, there's tickets left on both. So then the seats just go empty, or
So somebody owns that ticket. So that person who posted the ticket on StubHub, your choice now is go to the game. I mean, it's your ticket,
yes.
or eat it. Just
Eat
don't
it.
go, and you're out whatever cost you paid for that ticket.
So
Or
if I bought 10, I'm going to get stuck with 10 because I
Yep.
wasn't able. So it looks like in the end, FIFA by doing this is actually leaving these guys. So they're basically a bunch of them are going to take a bath.
Yeah, and part of the unfortunate part of the story too is that remember that when the tickets went on sale, it was before we knew who was actually going to even be playing in these events. And that's a colossal scam. And FIFA is going to insist that it has to be done that way because we didn't know up until very recently who was going to be that last club, that last nation playing in Canada's group. It was only when we saw the very final match between Bosnia and Italy that we realized, oh, it's Italy that's here. I will be following Sweden very closely in their World Cup run. They were also one of those last minutes. They had to defeat Ukraine very, very late in the game. So, it's one of those things where you're buying your tickets blind. And that also poses a bit of a problem then because FIFA can say, it could be Italy. And of course, in Canada, we would probably want to see top soccer nations. And without any disrespect to Bosnia, I don't know that Bosnia is as much of a draw as Italy would be. And so it's one of those things that if you bought up the tickets, it's got to be Italy that's going to beat Bosnia. There's no way that's going to be an upset. Then you're holding a ticket saying, uh-oh, I think I'm in a lot of trouble here. What am I going to do? You're not going to find a buyer at that point. So take a bath and eat it.
Yeah, I think so. And that, we were just before the show, we were actually jumped on and we were trying to figure out how many tickets were where and who was doing what. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So it looks like that is the case. So at the end of the day, I just was interested, the projections for the cup. So what it was actually, because I told you, I don't want to be unfair, 8.9 billion in revenues from advertising and broadcasting. But then they're saying this is the FIFA revised budget. They're saying basically it's going to be 6.39 billion in costs. So by the time their operating costs, broadcast costs, they pay all the good salaries and everything else. So it's about a $2.5 billion event. Is there any sports event that actually someone, and I was curious because I don't do this, the economics of sports. So you might have a feeling. Is there any like Super Bowl? Is there any sporting event that actually garners 2.5 billion in profits?
So I don't know that it's necessarily the $2.5 billion in profits that draws my attention. I'm going to say that the thing that draws my attention is for your CPA mind, what's the return on investment or what's the return on assets or, like what's the return? So it's not the dollar amount, right? So you and
Right.
I know that if I tell you my company made $1 billion in profit, as a CPA, your pushback would be, well, what were your revenues? Right? Because if I told you that I made $1 billion
Right.
in profit on $1 billion in revenue, you're going to say, wow, that's unbelievable. If I told you I made $1 billion in profit, but on $100 billion in revenues, you're going to say, wow, that's a super competitive marketplace you must be operating in if your margin's only 1%.
Yeah.
What I would say is that the greatest returns on sporting events come from events where your infrastructure or startup costs are at a minimum. So the Super Bowl is a very low cost event to put on. It doesn't sound like it when you see the grandiosity of the event, but you're always using an NFL stadium. That stadium is already used on a, let's say, bi-weekly basis because you're not paying every week at home, but you're at least getting 8, 9, 10 games at home with preseason, postseason. You've got years and years of experience how to get 80,000 people in and out. You know how to paint the yard lines. You know how to get everything set up, security. You roughly know what's expected. So the ask is not very much, but the benefit is gigantic because it's not the local community that attends it. It's almost entirely foreigners that are coming in to watch, whether it's from both teams or people that just want the Super Bowl experience. So that's a big, big moneymaker for a small ask. In Canada, we could not make the money hosting the Super Bowl because we don't have an NFL ready stadium. Even if you say, well, we could hold it in CFL stadiums like BC Place or, yeah, you could. But what would be needed to get BC Place up to Super Bowl ready would be a huge ask. And so that return on your investment would be extremely small. Where Canada can make money is hosting things like the World Hockey Championships. We have 7 ready-made NHL arenas, plus we have extremely good arenas in London and Halifax. We have an NHL-ready arena waiting in Quebec City. The only thing that's missing is an NHL team. So in theory, we could put on the World Hockey Championships at the snap of a finger. So the ask on the public purse would be extremely small. The ask on private investors would be pretty small, but you'd be able to sell the place out because even if you're watching some obscure Switzerland playing Finland, fine, you can price your tickets in a way that if you want to sell the place out, you can, or if you just want to maximize your revenues with only 5,000 people, that's something then that you put in London or in Halifax where it's a smaller arena and at least it's closer to sell out. So those are the things where we should be aiming to make our money. The Olympics generally don't make money, whether it's $2.5 billion or $10 billion, because the ask on the local economy to be Olympics ready is so huge that it's like the World Cup but on steroids. And so that's why you find that more and more countries are steering clear of wanting to host the Olympics, or the countries that are stepping forward saying we want to do it are either pushing it across many, many regions. So Italy just had the Winter Olympic cycle in 3 different cities. The next Winter Olympics is in the French Alps with no one particular city named. Or you hold it in non-democratic countries where the taxpayers' views are irrelevant. So that's how you end up with Sochi, Beijing, and other places where they really shouldn't be hosting the event, but they really couldn't care either within that, remember that triangle, on quality, on time, and on budget. They don't care if they go off budget because they don't have to face the taxpayers. So, I don't know that there's necessarily a lot of events that make $2.5 billion, but I don't think that's really the measure that we should be looking at. It's what's the return I get, and I think they're much better events for us to be hosting, even though they're on a smaller scale.
Right. No, great point. And definitely. And it's interesting when you bring up the Olympics. So on the previous show we did on the cost on this issue. So Jim Lang, who's a sports guy, came on with me and we had a good conversation about what the $1 billion was going to cost. And he was adamant, no matter what, we should hold this event, no matter what, this is good for, and in his mind, it set us up for the Summer Olympics. And I was like, no, please do not think about. So Canadians, I'll end this show with you, Moshe. I'll end the show and I'll say, please, once we're done this, right? Let's chalk it up. I hope everyone has a good time, has a few beers. I hope their teams win. But please do not look at this as the model to go forward and try to get the Summer Olympics. I don't think that would be a great idea after
So
this.
I agree with you. I will add just one
Sure.
caveat to the story. If our political leaders had come to us 8 years ago, and if they had said the following, the World Cup is going to cost Canada $2 billion per
Mhm.
man, woman, and child, that's $50. I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of the money back. But we've been going through a rough time in this country. We're having a hard time with unity. We're having a hard time dealing with our American neighbors who we thought were our best friends. Sport is important. It brings the community together. Take a look at how Montreal responded, or Canada responded to getting behind Montreal in their Stanley Cup run. Here's an opportunity for us to do something that is a nation-building exercise. For $50 per man, woman, and child, what do you say? If people say, I'm okay with that, I mean, what can you do these days for $50? And if they promise that whatever we did make from the event, we would give it back to the taxpayers. So $50 is their maximum exposure. And people say, I'm good with that. I'm good with that too. So if they want to do that with the Olympics, stop selling me on what the economic benefits are. Sell me on what the non-financial benefits are, right? It's a nation building exercise. Don't tell people it's going to put Canada on the map. That's a load of garbage. We are the largest country geographically in the world. There's nobody in this world that would not know how to find Canada, right? We're not some obscure country in the South Pacific. But if you tell us that it's 2 weeks of an amazing party, that's a once in a generation opportunity, fear of missing out, let's just do it because it's fun. Hey, if people say fine, we can choose to use our tax dollars whatever way we want. It's when they promise us that we will get untold tourists, we'll get this economic growth, this will allow us to break free of the US, we're going to be able to turn this into long-term tourism benefit. That's where you lose me. You're lying out of your rear end. You know you're lying. There's no evidence to suggest that this is the way it's going to play out. And you've misled the taxpayers who aren't supposed to be doing the deep research. That's my job. That's your job in the media. So when I'm saying as an expert, don't do it, trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not looking to be a wet blanket. If you want to tell me that there's other reasons for doing it, I'm perfectly willing to listen, and I'm perfectly willing to listen to the will of the taxpayers.
Jim, it's interesting. Jim Lang brought up the point, and it's a great point. I just wanted to throw it, on the table. He basically said in Philadelphia, they spent 6 years. Once they got the announcement that the cup was coming to America, they actually got out and they got advertisers, and they spent 6 years. We spent, I think, 60 days. So the difference was, the capitalist market, the capitalism in America and the fight to get advertisers, so much more aggressive than it was here. We actually, to your point, which I think is bang on, it's okay if you told us, but you didn't tell us. And then, quite frankly, you didn't go out and market it. You didn't try to find advertisers to fill the hole. And, in some cases, buying tickets and trying to scalp them on the open market to try to make money for the cities, I don't think is a good idea. So
that's like a midnight bet on the University of Hawaii on college football season, right? You got to make up for your losses in the day.
You got it. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the game Friday. Go Canada.
Go Canada.